Contrary to popular belief, authoritarianism is extremely detrimental to the efficiency and capabilities of a governing institution. As corrupt and gridlocked as the Galactic Republic was, it never spent a double-digit percentage of its GDP on building a giant moon-sized weapon installation that could destroy planets. The Galactic Empire, by most metrics, was an inferior entity. When you reject checks and balances, political polarity usually results in governing bodies that are not held accountable for their deficiencies, corruption, and other failures. Power is given out based on hierarchy and loyalty to the regime and not because of merit, truth, or ethics. What you end up with is a small, elite political class that is very loyal to Palpatine, but not necessarily good at their jobs. As a matter of fact, most of these officials are probably going to be very corrupt and looting as much as possible using their station. And that's because authoritarian regimes are all about maintaining power and not necessarily doing what's right for the constituents. Even if sharing power with other institutions might improve the overall economic and social benefit to society, authoritarians view any non-allied source of power as a challenge to their rule. As a result, you have political institutions that are not really flexible and not capable of making the reforms necessary to provide good service. And so what happens when the raid on Aldhani occurs? What happens when the Death Star plans are stolen on Scarif? The Empire doesn't just call on its rank-and-file soldiers, they have severe limitations, which again is caused by Emperor Palpatine's authoritarianism, which is designed to make the military as loyal as possible and not necessarily as competent as possible. And so instead, Emperor Palpatine calls on a select group of individuals who he has personally groomed and developed over the years. And that's because individuals are a lot easier to bribe and control than giant institutions. If anything, Palpatine's inner circle kind of reminds me of a bunch of capos in a mafia family. These are individuals who owe everything to Palpatine and therefore are extremely loyal to him. It's through these trusted individuals that Palpatine is also willing to share his power, and so they almost become an extension of him. When the raid on Aldhani is successfully pulled off, it sends a shock through the entire empire. It emboldens people sitting on the fence about rebellion and awakens hibernating revolutionaries. And while the material loss was great in this raid, the larger problem with the Aldhani raid was that it made the empire look vulnerable. It shook this carefully cultivated image that it was in control of this massive galaxy with its robust military forces. The actual truth was that no military force really could control the entire galaxy because it was simply just too large.
The more you tighten your grip, Tarkin, the more star systems will slip through your fingers.
So Palpatine was most likely panicking here, and he had no idea how to confront the situation. His Star Destroyers and thundering AT-ATs and faceless legions of stormtroopers were useless against a well-hidden underground rebel movement. And so Palpatine calls upon an old friend, an individual who he's mentored throughout the years, who has always proven to be extremely loyal to him, for help. We, of course, are talking about Wolfylarn, a Coruscanti native. He served in a Republic task force prior to the Clone Wars, who would retire from military service and join the Senate Bureau of Intelligence as a special agent focused specifically on tackling corruption and crime. It would be his true calling in life and later grow on to be an obsession. It was actually rumored that while he was serving in that Republic task force, Wolfylarn was really frustrated that he kept on running into corrupt officials who were basically protecting criminal enterprises. Wolfylarn's zeal for law enforcement and justice caught Palpatine's attention. The Chancellor would assign the young intelligence officer to his personal anti-corruption office. Wolfylarn would admire Palpatine for his steadfast dedication to eradicating corruption and crime within the Republic. He would become a very loyal follower. When the Clone Wars erupted, Palpatine convinced Wolfylarn to come out of retirement once again and serve in the Republic Navy. Wolf would be given an officer's commission with the rank of Admiral and become the youngest flag officer in Republic naval history. Wolfylarn would serve valiantly through the conflict and retire once again when the Empire rose to power and peace was established across the galaxy. Wolfylarn would pursue a new career as an ISB colonel. On the eve of the Aldhani raid, Palpatine would personally call Wolfylarn to his office. He would instruct him that the ISB under his command would basically be given unlimited power and access so that they can pursue and capture the perpetrators of the Aldhani heist. The next individual on this list who was mentored by Palpatine might come to a surprise to many of you guys because he's universally known within the Star Wars fandom for being either incompetent or perhaps even a full-blown spy because he's so incompetent. We, of course, are talking about Kendall Lonzo, who I just found out, by the way, had a fiancée and broke up because she actually wanted to join the rebellion and he was loyal to the Empire. Apparently, they still had feelings for each other, so, you know, that whole kind of rebel spy narrative is starting to look like it makes a lot more sense here. Anyway, the point is, Ozzel's command decisions were usually so terrible that it actually confused people. And that's because the Imperial Military Officer Candidacy Program is not just about what you do in your life, it's more about who you are, what family you come from, and what world you come from, unfortunately. And Ozzel came from a very wealthy family on Karita. He went to the right schools and academies in the core worlds and made the right friends. Because of his station in life, Ozzel would actually be introduced to Supreme Chancellor Palpatine pretty early on in his career. The Republic severely lacked capable military officers when the Clone Wars broke out, so even Kendall Lonzo was a prized commodity, despite the fact that he was quite an incompetent individual. His own superior officers and instructors at Military Academy recommended that Kendall Lonzo never be placed in a command position on a battlefield. That's how bad he did. But for some reason, Chancellor Palpatine would actually give Ozzel a captain's commission, and he would be placed in charge of the 44th Special Operations Division. During the Battle of Korm, Kendall Lonzo proved to be a danger to himself, to his men, and also a coward. Yet somehow he was able to take responsibility for the Republic victory on the planet and received praise from Chancellor Palpatine. You see, even a Sith Lord can be misled by a grifter like Kendall Lonzo. Unfortunately, Ozzel's luck would run out with the rise of the Empire. He would eventually serve beneath Darth Vader, who did not suffer fools. If only Tarkin had been born Force sensitive, he would have made a terrific Sith Lord. Tarkin came from a hard family. They believed in self-reliance in a pretty toxic way. For instance, Tarkin's coming-to-age ritual involves sending a small child into the wilderness full of giant alien tigers alone and armed, which is child endangerment at the grossest level. At least here in the United States, when a kid is facing off their first tiger, generally in Texas, which is home to the largest tiger population in the entire world, at least they're given a gun. For all of you non-Americans out there who don't know the local cultural practices, but when you're born in the States, you're given your birth certificate as you leave and also a military surplus sidearm, generally like a 1911 or something. Anyway, Tarkin would make a name for himself as a young soldier within the Outland Region Security Forces, a local defense force from his home sector. Tarkin would go on to join the Republic Judicial Forces, and while training on Solus, he would actually run into a young Senator Chief Palpatine. They really hit it off and become friends. Palpatine would eventually convince Tarkin to become a politician. He recognized in Tarkin that same twisted mindset and worldview that he had. They were kindred spirits in how much they feared losing power and how much they loved using excessive force. Palpatine would begin to mentor Tarkin, and he would help him secure a governorship on his homeworld of Iradu. During the lead up to the Clone Wars, Palpatine would actually send Dooku to test Tarkin and offer the young governor a chance to have a seat at the Separatist table. Tarkin actually passed this test and refused to join the Separatist Alliance. He would be rewarded, like Kendall Lonzo, with a captain's commission in the Republic Navy during the war. During the interwar years, Tarkin was seen as a problem solver and assigned to the Strategic Advisory Cell's Special Weapons Group. They were in charge of Palpatine's most treasured project, a special topical cream that removes severe wrinkles from a person's scrotum. Darth Sidious wanted to fix his face. On a side note, the Special Weapons Group was also in charge of the Death Star program. The fact that Tarkin was in charge of these very important programs meant that Palpatine trusted him more than anyone. And that included Anakin, because he was a Sith Lord, and they liked the stabby behind the backy. Palpatine actually trusted Tarkin so much that he would adopt his thesis, the Tarkin Doctrine, which was a huge failure. When the young alien commander Thrawn was picked up by an Imperial patrol, Emperor Palpatine saw an opportunity to learn more about the unknown region of the galaxy. This is a portion of the galaxy that was extremely chaotic. There were a lot of moving gravitational anomalies, which made mapping out hyperspace lanes extremely difficult. Palpatine knew that this region of space was home to the ancient Sith Empire and wanted to learn more about it and uncover its hidden secrets. Thrawn, or Thrawn, was on a mission of his own. The Chiss Ascendancy was surrounded by a bunch of unknown hostile alien species. They wanted to see if the Empire could be a good ally in their war against all of these hostile threats. Unlike the relationships so far we've talked about, both parties in this relationship had something important that the other side needed. Thrawn would be eventually placed in the Imperial Academy system and trained in the Imperial ways. He would eventually receive a commission within the Imperial Navy as a lieutenant and would work his way up to the rank of Grand Admiral. You see, Thrawn had amazing analytical abilities. He was a keen student of alien culture and art and somehow used what he learned to predict how alien species would behave on the battlefield. Thrawn became one of the most capable individuals within Palpatine's inner circle. Unfortunately, he lacked the political savvy to become anything more than that. The person Palpatine groomed more than anyone was a young child named Anakin Skywalker. From the very first moment they met, he had planned on corrupting the young boy.
And you, young Skywalker, we will watch your career with great interest.
Palpatine was looking for a lot more than just a regular weapon for his tool belt here. He was looking for a Sith apprentice. And young Skywalker had a higher midichlorian count than almost any other being alive. Palpatine would have other apprentices throughout his career like Maul and Dooku, but he only saw Anakin as his crown jewel. And so Palpatine would play this father-like figure for Anakin. He would always leave the door open and encourage him to follow his dreams and desires. And this was really helpful for the young boy as he struggled to fit in with the Jedi Order in its very restrictive ways. Many members of the High Council, like Mace Windu, were suspicious of the boy and disliked his impulsive and emotional temperament. And so whenever the Jedi reprimanded Anakin, Palpatine would actually side with Anakin and hear him out. Sheev accepted the young boy no matter what and would win young Skywalker's loyalty as a result. On one occasion, Palpatine even took young Anakin on a tour of the Undercity of Coruscant. He wanted Anakin to see how the average person lived and also how corrupt the Republic could be. He planted these seeds of mistrust that would one day turn Anakin against everything he knew. Now, during the Clone Wars, Palpatine would attempt to drive a wedge between Anakin and the Jedi by appointing the young man to the High Jedi Council. This was against normal procedure. The Supreme Chancellor usually did not interfere with the business of the Jedi. And so the Council would only accept Anakin half-heartedly. They wouldn't give him the rank of Jedi Master, for instance, which was unheard of for someone who was on the Jedi Council. This would all deeply offend Anakin. At every turn, Emperor Palpatine enabled Anakin's worst attributes and indulged the young man's narcissism, fear, and anger, like a true Sith mentor would. By the time Order 66 came around, Anakin was perfectly positioned to fall to the dark side. Palpatine would prove again that no one played the long game as well as he did. So there you have it, guys. Those are 5 individuals that were mentored by Emperor Palpatine and belonged to his inner circle. Let me know in the comment section below which one is your favorite. I've also left out a bunch of other ones, so feel free to mention individuals I have not mentioned in this video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy,